This is an Eye on Annapolis bonus podcast.
All right. Well, I'll tell you, the person that I'm speaking to on the phone, the last time I spoke with her, she was in bed with her cats, and I don't think she is today, but she is one of, if not the funniest women in comedy and one of my favorite all-time comedians, Paula Poundstone. Welcome back. How are you?
Well, thank you very much. I am good enough. I'm actually, I sleep on the floor. I put a sheet and a blanket down, and I sleep on the floor in my office/bedroom. And then in the morning, I fold those up and put them in a box. And so, so I'm not in bed, but I'm in the same place, which is, it miraculously turns into my office. And so I'm sitting beside my treadmill, which really I use as a night table.
Don't we all?
Yeah.
Paula, you're coming to Annapolis once again on June 22nd for a single show this time. And I just did peek at ramsheadonstage.com, and there are some tickets still available. After you listen to this podcast here, you want to go to paulapoundstone.com and you want to subscribe to her podcast. Nobody listens to Paula Poundstone, although we all are right now. And you can get your Paula fix there all the time. But I'm so glad to be talking to you again. And what are you bringing to Annapolis this time?
Me and my little jokes are coming back. Every show is different for a couple of reasons. One is I'm always folding in new stuff. The other reason is that I have 45 years of material floating around. My brain looks sort of like that arcade game where you step into a glass booth and they blow paper money around you, or whatever you can catch you can keep. But the other thing is, my favorite part of the night is just talking to the audience. I do the time-honored "Where are you from? What do you do for a living?" And in this way, little biographies of audience members emerge, and I use it from which to set my sails. So I obviously don't know who I'm going to talk to or what the subject matter will be. It works a little bit like Willy Wonka's chocolate waterfall, churning the chocolate. So every show is different. So if you've come before, you can come back again, and there'll be, it'll be a wholly different experience. The only thing that'll be the same is the strengthening of your abs from the healing laughter.
There you go. I do love, I'll say improv, and that's probably not the right word, but comedy that is, off the cuff. And I mean, I love George Carlin. I don't think anybody doesn't like him, but I understand that he was totally scripted. So, I mean, I can totally appreciate, I love that you do what you do.
Well, there's a lot of comics that are totally scripted, and by the way, they're great. They do it really well, and it's fantastic. I have pretty significant memory problems, for one thing. So memorizing something has always been really, really hard for me, and it also makes me sort of smaller somehow. I'm so desperately trying to remember the next thing to say that I just don't have like a free-flowing feeling about me when I do it that way. When I started out as an open micer, and the premise of an open mic being that you get 5 minutes, right? And there were all these other people waiting to go on, I would invariably go up, and within seconds, I would have forgotten what I wanted, what I had planned to say, and then was sort of forced to, either talk about other things or the other way around, which is that sometimes I'd go on stage and I'd think of something right at that second and blurt it out. Well, now I didn't know where I was in the 5 minutes. And so in the beginning, I thought of it as some sort of undisciplined bad thing that I did that all the time. I was forever sort of criticizing myself for not sticking with my planned 5 minutes. And I don't know, one night a light went on, and I went, oh, this is the best part of the whole night is when I do that, right? Where it just sort of comes organically, and it's sort of the heart and soul of the show, partly also because it has a tremendous amount to do with who's in the room. And I have the best audiences in the world. Not the biggest, but the best.
Size does not matter. That's what they tell me.
No. In that, it really is a remarkable audience. I mean, back when I worked, comedy clubs, which is 30 years ago now, but back when I did, guys would kill to work with me. And it's not because I was such a stroll in the park to be with. It's because they were jealous of my art. They wanted to get a chance to talk to my audience. So as soon as I could, I shook the dust of that off my heels and started just performing by myself because I don't want to share them with anybody else.
Fair.
Yeah, it's a little selfish, I admit that, but I do 2 hours, and the idea that I would have to give up, 10 minutes, 20 minutes of that to somebody else just doesn't sit well with me. I just feel like, no, but I want to talk to them.
Well, I'll tell you, Ram's Head is a small club. I mean, it's only 300 seats, so it jives very well with what you do, but you're here every year. And
yeah, usually it's in December, so this is kind of weird.
Yeah, but what brings you back here? What do you like about Ram's Head?
Oh, you know what? I have had so much fun on that stage. You're right. I mostly work theaters, so I do about maybe four music clubs, maybe 5, I'm not sure, music clubs around the country. And I don't really know how those first got booked, but like the Birchmere in Alexandria, for example, a couple places in Maine. And I feel part of it is because I feel like the notes from the music that have played there over the years are still hanging in the air somehow. There's just a nice atmosphere in those places. But the other thing is, Ram's Head in particular, I am practically sitting in the laps of the audience members.
True.
It is a small. I don't think it's the smallest place I work. I think it might be the second smallest place I work. And there really is an intimacy that I think my shows always have a feeling of intimacy, even in the theater. But this is intimacy squared, I think. If I can introduce a mathematical concept.
Absolutely. Hey, do you ever get time to check out our town when you're here?
Not much. No, I think, usually because it's on the other side of the country, I usually, especially because I'm usually there in December, I have time to eat and get a shower. Although I don't shower as much now, so I might have more time now. Eat, get a shower, go on stage, right, and then I'm. There are times where I've been there, and it was never light out the whole time I was there because I leave so early in the morning. I think the other thing is I get lost really easily, so I can't walk around anywhere very much without getting lost. So I usually just pick one direction to walk in, and then I walk just on that one road, and then I'll turn around and come back. I think the last time I was there, I finally went in the other direction, and I'm like, oh my God, this is beautiful.
Well, I'll tell you, if you have time before your show, there's a great little festival and I'll text you and I'll direct you there. I'll even come pick you up and take you there if you're interested in going to it. It's called Eatport A Rockin, but if you've got time before, I'd love to take you there.
Oh, that sounds great.
Absolutely. Well, okay, you are a cat person. We all know that. How many do you have now? I guess your cats are more like a Paula person.
Well, that's true. No, it's funny because you say that, and yet I am sitting here on this floor of my bedroom / office, and I'm hemmed in by 2 large dogs because I don't let cats in my bedroom. My argument used to be that there needs to be some place where there's not fur all over the place, but it's shedding season and there's fur all over the place because these dogs are, big furry dogs with huge tufts that surely it's in my lungs right now. I have 10 cats.
Jeez,
and the most I ever had was 16. My daughter was visiting one day, and she goes, Mom, you only have 10. She goes, it's like you don't have any. It's all in the eye of the beholder. We are in. I think we're just about in kitten season. And so I'm tempted to up my senses, but I don't know.
Brave woman, brave woman. I'll tell you. Well, I'll tell you. Well, in the comedy world, do you follow any other comedians or comics that are out there?
I don't.
No,
I don't. In the old days when I did work clubs, and usually it was headliner, middle act, MC. So I also worked the Improv in Hollywood, which is a showcase club, and so there were tons of us, and we hung out there. And so I used to know like all of my my sort of classmates, the people that started when I did.
sure.
But now, no, I don't know. I mean, I know the old guys, although honestly, a lot of them are dead. Every time I see one of my brethren trending, I'm like, uh-oh. And, sometimes it does mean muerte, and sometimes it just means they said something stupid. Which I think if enough time goes by that, the people don't get attention. Like, who was it? Was it Tim Allen that recently said, I think it was Tim Allen.
Oh, he said something about Trump and...
No, said that animals didn't feel love. And I just think, well, that's stupid. And I just think, well, I think a period of time went by and he hadn't gotten enough attention. So he just said something stupid and it worked. Tons of people were talking about it. That's, but anyways, yeah. So I don't know any, people tell me names of people and I'm like, huh. Yeah.
All right. Well, who's on your playlist on your phone? Who do you listen to music wise?
Well, there's a band that every time I ask people, it's actually on my playlist because when I don't know if they do it at Ram's Head. I think they do. I have my own playlist for the walk-in music when people are coming in to the venue. Okay. And it has Ray Charles, Stevie Wonder, Louis Prima, a great band that whenever I ask a production guy while I'm standing waiting to go on stage, I'll say, do you know who this is singing? And they always go, no. There was a great band, I think it was around in the 80s, called Hot House Flowers.
Yes.
And it was an Irish band, like off the boat Irish band. So I have a song of theirs. And then I have entirely different vein, but on the same playlist, I have James Taylor's "That's Why I'm Here," because it's a song about how him going and doing. James Taylor has a huge library of songs. He still creates new music, but when he goes places, people want him to play his old stuff as well, and I think it's a song about recognizing that's what he's, that's why he's here. And I love that because I feel the same about being a stand-up. Just, there was a period during the stay-at-home order where, because of COVID, that we weren't sure that we would ever be able to gather in groups in theaters again. There was who knew what was going to happen with COVID or what'll happen with the next pandemic. And that was the first time in my life that I ever had that thought in my head, that, oh my gosh, this thing that I love. And by the way, I love being an audience member sometimes too. But this thing that I love where we gather and we share an emotional experience, whether it's comedy or tragedy or dance or music, we share the human experience of having a similar emotion about something, which really does make you feel like a human being. If I was the only one who cried at E.T., I would think there was something wrong with me. But when the entire theater was crying at E.T., it was like, oh my gosh, we are human. This is our reaction is human, and we don't have to feel weird about it, or we don't have to think, well, I'm the only one. That experience was taken away from us by the pandemic, and it really reinforced for me this idea that this job that I get to do, where I go out and I say things that I think are funny and make people laugh. That's why I'm here. And if I had to do something else, which I did think for a little while that I would have to do something, I applied for jobs at grocery stores during the pandemic. Well, we're still in the pandemic, during the stay-at-home order.
Really?
Because I thought, By the way, they wouldn't hire me, but I did because, well, for a couple of reasons. One is I like physical labor, and I'm pretty good at it. But also because when you'd go to the grocery store, which was one of the only places that I went during that period of time, but when you go to the grocery store, people looked so miserable. And I thought, if I were there to do a job where I could make, where I'd have some income anyways, I think I would also have the added benefit of being able to, cheer people up sometimes. Honestly, I also had somewhere in the back of my hand that I would get that grocery store microphone in my hand. Shoppers. Yeah, I just, the idea that I could say, have you seen the crooked carrots? And by the way, have you seen that late night commercial? That would have given me joy. Or I could have said, can anybody find the raisins? No.
I can't imagine a world without Paula Poundstone. I mean, seriously, what would you have done?
I tried to.
Well, what would you have done back in 1970, whenever it was that your very first thing and you flopped and you realized that you just weren't funny, nobody liked you, nobody laughed at you? What would Paula Poundstone be doing today? Please don't tell me a grocery store announcer.
I'm not sure what I was doing at the time when I started as doing open mic night. I lived in Boston and I was bussing tables in a restaurant. And at the time, I thought that I would, work my way up to manager. By the way, A, I don't think I would make a good restaurant manager. B, I loved bussing tables. For one thing, I was good at it. Really good at it. Like when I left, they had to hire 2 people. That kind of good at it. I have a gift for bussing tables, and I loved the. Restaurant work is very stressful, partly because you're working with human beings, but also the converse of that stress is also great joy. We would get laughing so hard over things like forks. There's camaraderie and all that, much of which I don't have that in the work I do now. I'm mostly just alone. Every now and then I'll turn to a total stranger, like on an airplane or maybe in a restaurant or in the airport, and blurt something out that they just weren't expecting. I get a lot of weird looks. So there were good things about that, but I, to do that for my whole life would have been not so much fun.
I hear you there. Well, I am certainly glad that your busing career floundered and fell on its face and you went into comedy. That's for sure. Paula Poundstone is here in Annapolis on Saturday night, June 22nd at Ram's Head on Stage for one show. It's at 6:30 for the geriatric set, I guess. There
we go. There's nothing like telling jokes when the sun's still up. That is, you feel like when you were a kid and your parents told you to go to bed, because it was 8 o'clock and you're like, it's still light outside. But once you're, because I have done 6:30 shows there before, and I always, tease the audience about that fact. But the truth is, once we're in there and we get going, you don't even think about the outside anymore for a little while. For a couple of hours, you just laugh, and it has no time and place. It's just us. It's
just a shared experience. And I love what you said about, it didn't matter whether it's tragedy or comedy or music or whatever it is. It's a shared experience. And certainly on the 22nd, everybody can get a chance to share that experience for a couple hours with Paula. I'm fortunate because I got to share it for an extra 15 or 20 minutes here on the phone.
Well, thank you so much.
We will see you on Saturday night, the 22nd. Again, tickets, ramsheadonstage.com. There are still some available. You also want to make sure you go to paulapoundstone.com, and you can be a nobody too, because nobody listens to Paula Poundstone. That's what the rumor is. Wonderful podcast. And I want to thank you so much, and safe travels back here to Annapolis.
I appreciate it. Thanks a lot. It was great talking with you.
This has been a bonus podcast from Eye on Annapolis. Please visit us at eyeonannapolis.net. Follow us on Facebook at All Annapolis and on Twitter at Eye on Annapolis. And if you haven't subscribed to the Daily News Brief podcast, go for it. And all of your local news will be delivered to your phone, tablet, or smart device by 6 a.m. every Monday through Friday.